Picture this. A coastline so barren, so brutally hot, that even the birds stayed away. No roads, no electricity, no running water, just salt air, endless sand, and a handful of fishermen surviving on whatever the sea was willing to give. Now look at that same place today. The tallest building on Earth, man-made islands visible from space, a city that went toe-to-toe with London, New York, and Paris, and did it all in just 50 years. This is Dubai. And this story isn't just about money and oil. It's about a family that started with bloodshed, grew up in the desert, and somehow reached the sky. This is the story of the Maktoums. The year is 1833. Deep inside the Arabian desert, in an oasis called Liwa, a powerful tribe called the Bani Yas held control over the land. Within that tribe were two major branches, the Albu Falah and their cousins, the Albu Falasa. They lived under the same roof, but power is never something that sits quietly. When a new leader named Khalifa bin Shakbut took control, he did what rulers in this part of the world had been doing for centuries. He chose fear. He invited all of his rivals to a grand wedding feast, food, celebration, and the appearance of unity. And when the room was at its most unsuspecting, he gave the order. Swords came out. Dozens of Albu Falasa men were dead before the night was over. But two men survived, Ubayd bin Said and Maktoum bin Budi. They refused to bow. They gathered what was left of their people, loaded up their camels, and headed north. There was no clear destination. The only thing certain, they weren't going back. After weeks of traveling through the dunes, they reached a coastline, a small creek cutting through the sand, opening up to the sea. Along its banks stood a few palm leaf huts, a handful of fishermen, and nothing else. That place became Dubai. And that same Maktoum bin Budi became the founding father of the ruling family that governs Dubai to this very day. The British Empire had already spread its reach across the Gulf. In 1820, the rulers of the region signed a maritime treaty with Britain, gaining protection in exchange for handing over control of their foreign affairs. The Maktoums were smart enough to accept this reality. They kept the peace, and under that peace, they quietly built. Decades passed. Dubai breathed like a small port town. There were pearls, fish, and modest trade. Then, in 1894, one decision changed everything. Sheikh Maktoum bin Hashir abolished all trade taxes. 0 tariffs, no customs duties, no restrictions. Just come, trade, and leave freely. Merchants from Persia, India, and Oman came flooding in. One decision permanently rewired Dubai's DNA. It became a city of trade, and it still is. At the turn of the 20th century, Dubai's real treasure was hiding at the bottom of the sea. Pearls. Every summer, hundreds of boats pushed out into the Gulf. Divers went under with nothing but a nose clip and a stone weight tied to their belts. From sunrise to sunset, dozens of dives a day. No oxygen tanks, no modern gear, just the human body and the sea. This industry was Dubai's backbone. Most of its income, most of its jobs, all of it resting on those tiny, glimmering gems. Then the news came out of Japan. A man named Kokichi Mikimoto figured out that if you insert a small bead inside a live oyster, the oyster coats it in layers, and out comes a perfect pearl. Cultured pearls, identical to the real thing, but at a fraction of the cost. By the 1920s, these pearls were flooding world markets. London, Paris, Bombay, buyers couldn't tell the difference. The price of natural Gulf pearls collapsed almost overnight. Boats sat idle. Divers had no work. Families went into debt they would never escape. Dubai went silent. hungry, exhausted, and without direction. In 1958, Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum took the throne. This was the same city where he had grown up watching ships come and go, talking to traders in the markets, always carrying one question: how does this city move forward? When he became ruler, the first problem hit him immediately, and it was not a small one. Dubai Creek was dying. Years of silt had made the waterway so shallow that large ships couldn't enter anymore. Traders were moving to Bahrain and Kuwait. If things continued, the one lifeline Dubai had left would shut completely. Rashid had no oil and very little money, but he had nerve. He borrowed 400,000 pounds from Kuwait and started dredging the creek. British engineers brought in the equipment. Thousands of tons of silt were removed, and after 2 years, the channel was wide enough for large vessels to dock right in the heart of the city. When the first big ship came through, the merchants came back. Dubai became the busiest port in the region. It was a gamble. Rashid won. Around the same time, India banned gold imports in 1962. For most Indians, gold was a lifetime of savings, a safety net when banks and governments couldn't be trusted. Dubai's merchants saw the opportunity. Gold came in legally from London and Switzerland. Then small wooden dhow boats crossed the Arabian Sea at night, delivering it to India's western coastline. Every year, somewhere between 100 and 200 tons of gold moved through Dubai. The city earned the name, the City of Gold. But Rashid knew none of this was permanent. The real power was in oil. 30 years of searching, multiple failed wells, constant disappointment. Then in 1966, 35 miles offshore, a well called Fateh No. 1 finally answered. Oil came surging up from the seabed. In 1969, the first shipment left for Japan. $30 million a year started flowing in. Roads were built, schools opened, electricity came on. For the first time, Dubai had the means to build, not just survive. And then in 1971, when Britain pulled its forces out of the Gulf, Sheikh Rashid and Abu Dhabi's Sheikh Zayed met in the middle of the desert. In a simple tent, they agreed to build something new together. On December 2nd, 1971, the United Arab Emirates was born. That strip of coastline now had its own flag. After Sheikh Rashid, his son Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum took over. If Rashid pulled Dubai up from the sand, Mohammed pushed it all the way to the sky. He asked the question nobody else was asking. When the oil runs out, what's left? He built Emirates Airlines, today one of the largest international carriers on the planet. And he built Jebel Ali Port, one of the biggest man-made harbors in the world. He created Palm Jumeirah, those artificial islands visible from space. One after another, Dubai positioned itself on every front that mattered. And then in 2004, a marker was placed in the sand. 6 years of construction, 12,000 workers, 100,000 tons of steel. On January 4th, 2010, the Burj Khalifa was unveiled. 828 meters, 163 floors, the tallest building on Earth, and it still holds that title today. This wasn't just a building, it was a message to the entire world that the city where a group of exiled survivors pitched their tents in the sand less than 2 centuries ago was now touching the clouds. Dubai's story isn't really about money. Every country in the Gulf had oil, but Dubai is the only city that stopped and asked, what happens when the resources are gone? One family stepped onto a deserted coastline, survivors of a massacre, building homes in the sand, living off the sea. They wiped out trade taxes, borrowed money to dig out a creek, moved gold across the ocean at night, and one day reached up and touched the sky. There were no resources, only will. And maybe that's the real miracle of Dubai. If this story stayed with you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's plenty more where this came from.